morning for Dave Del Rosso and our band with Richard, Joel, and Pete. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this celebration. Welcome to everyone who is here as part of Unity of the Blue Ridge. We're so glad to have you all here this morning. And every week we come together as a chance to remind ourselves who we are and why we are here on this planet and with each other. And so today is another chance to do that. And if you don't know, I am Laura Collins. I am the Associate Minister here at Unity, one of the Associate Ministers here at Unity of the Blue Ridge. Reverend Darlene is in Toronto this week at the Parliament of World Religions, which is a large gathering of folks from all different religious traditions from around the world. It's a huge gathering, and so I invite you to offer your prayers for her and for that gathering this week as she enjoys it. I think we've got a picture a little bit later that will show you about that. But as we come together each week, it's a time to remind ourselves the truth that we live in. And so we start each week with this affirmation. There is only one presence and power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And our mission together as a community of Unity of the Blue Ridge, we are an inclusive, inspiring spiritual community, embracing our divinity and joyfully evolving together. And so with those thoughts in our minds and hearts, let's enter into a time of prayer. As we take a deep breath and settle into this place this morning, we do so in gratitude. We do so in gratitude for our own bodies that allowed us to get out of bed and come here today. We do so in gratitude for the beauty of the fall morning around us. We do so in gratitude for the people who are sitting near us, to our left and to our right, in front of us and behind us. Knowing that they bring some energy, some spirit that we can share in today. We come in gratitude for this place where we live that allows us this week to vote and be part of a process of change. And we do so knowing that as we come together, as we create this moment of community, we're practicing for a way of being in the world. And we give each other the chance to experience our true natures. And so for this love, for this light, for this joy that we receive, we say, thank you, God. And so it is. Let's stand and join in singing our congregational songs. We're going to start with
We Come Together.
We Come Together.
Greet the neighbor next to you. Say namaste, I to you. Look around in sanctuary and feel the love that's shining through. We come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love. We come together. We come together. We come together. In the name
for the first time in a very long time, if you feel comfortable raising your hand, we will bring you a welcome card. Anybody here for the first time? Oh, great. Some folks back there in the back. So our greeters will come. You'll get a welcome card. On the welcome card, there's a little red heart. If you feel like putting your heart on your sleeve or on your chest, then that will give us a clue that you're new here today so that we can reach out to you. And then there's a basket that's outside of our bookstore. You can put that in there with your information if you'd like to hear from us. And you can also pick up a packet of information that looks something like this, that will tell you more about our community. But mostly we just want you to know that we are really delighted that you're here. We hope that you feel welcome and feel the Spirit among us today, and know that because you're here, the Spirit among us is different, and we're grateful for that. And so we'd like to rub our hands together and offer you a blessing. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. So thank you for being here. I hope you'll come again. Reverend Christy, what's going on this week?
There's a lot going on, always. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to share with you a few brief announcements. Now is the time in your service. It would be ideal if you can remember to please silence your cell phones. If you could turn them all the way off or on airplane mode, we'd appreciate that. And if you are not yet signed up for our weekly e-news, please sign up outside of our bookstore is a sign-up sheet, and you'll get weekly indication of all the really cool things happening here. And also please check our website as well, as that's constantly being updated. And let us move on here. Our community outreach program this month is with the Manna Food Bank, and we have two opportunities to come together, volunteers come together on Monday the 19th and Tuesday the 20th. Two different times. There are sign-up sheets out in the lobby. And if you would like to be on Team Unity and go over to the facility and help them with some time and energy, that would be greatly appreciated. The sign-up sheets are located next to the barrel, which is out there. We are currently collecting non-perishable food items for their pantry, and it's a wonderful organization. They reach out and support so many communities in Western North Carolina, so we are honored to be a part of that for our community outreach. And then next is a call for art. If you look at your bulletin, there's an insert. There's a call for art. If during this series of Mark Nepo's More Together Than Alone, you are inspired to create a piece of art based on something that you read, something that inspired you in participating in this, or if you are just so inspired to create a piece of art and would like to donate it to Unity of the Blue Ridge, we are having a silent auction that will be held on Friday, December 7th during our holiday concert. And I can get you a form to use if you want to donate a piece of art, and then all the proceeds go to support Unity of the Blue Ridge. So we appreciate your creativity and your gifts to this community. And then that leads us to our last announcement, which is our holiday concert, which is on Friday, December 7th at 7 p.m. It's a wonderful way to come celebrate the holidays. We've got Richard Shulman, our amazing band. We've got Cat Williams and Pat Caldwell, Reverend Darlene, and so many more performing that evening. So if you would like to join us for that, tickets are $10. They're available in our bookstore or online. And I believe with that, we are aware of the things happening, and I would like to turn this over to Reverend Laura.
Yeah, I don't, but I'm going to give that to you. So I'd like to invite, wait, are we at this song? Gotta make sure in the right order. I'd like to invite Danny Lewis to come forward and share our inspirational reading.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? This is a reading from Richard Rohr's Daily Meditations. We can't risk walking around with a negative, resentful, gossipy, critical mind, because then we won't be in our true force field. We won't be usable instruments for God. That's why Jesus commanded us to love. It's that urgent and that crucial. True religion is radical. It cuts to the root. Radix in Latin means root. It moves us beyond our private I into the full reality of we. Jesus seems to be saying in the Sermon on the Mount that our inner attitudes and states are the real sources of our problems. We need to root out the problems at the deepest interior level. Jesus says not only that we must not kill, but that we must not even harbor hateful anger. He clearly begins with the necessity of a pure heart in Matthew 5:8 and knows that the outer behavior will follow. Too often we force the outward response while the inward intent remains like a cancer. If we walk around with hatred all day, morally we're just the same as those who commit heinous acts. We can't live that way and not be destroyed from within. Yet for some reason, many Christians have thought it acceptable to think and feel hatred and negativity and fear. The evil and genocide of both World War I and World War II were the result of decades of negative, resentful, and paranoid thinking and feeling, even among good Christian people. Jesus tells us not to harbor hateful anger or call people names in our hearts like fool or worthless person. If we're walking around all day thinking, what idiots, we're living out of death and not life. If that's what we think and feel, that's what we will be, death energy instead of life force. We can't afford even inner disconnection from love. How we live in our hearts is our real and deepest truth.
All of my relations look you in the eye. We are all related. It's written in the sky. We can sing a simple song to everyone along the way. We can sing for the ones who wronged. It heals the wounds from yesterday. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loved. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. And may you be loved. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. And may you be loved. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be loved. To all of my relations, I bow to you. 'Cause we are all related. A common thread runs through, and we can sing a simple song for the ones in pain. We sing for the suffering
And thank you to our Unity Band, to Richard, Pete, Joel, and this week, Pat Caldwell. Thank you all. I hesitated before I invited Danny up because I had this sneaking suspicion I was missing something, and I was. I'd really like to tell you about a training that's coming up on December 2nd, and this is for new members to our care team. This is the care team that we currently have, and if anybody's here today from the care team that would stand up, Fawn Gottridge, Connie Eichenberg, Linda Fitzsimmons, Lane Godsey, Jennifer Hastings, Jennifer Lilly, Deborah O'Geist, and Phoebe Reed. I think Linda's the only one, and everyone else was at the first service who's in town this weekend. But Linda and Jennifer help with our prayer shawl ministry, which is one of the things our care team does, is deliver prayer shawls to folks who are in the hospital or homesick. We deliver casseroles, we send cards, we make phone calls, sometimes we make visits. And if you'd like to be part of that caring ministry, we would love to have you come and be part of the training on December 2nd from 1:30 to 4:30 here at the church, and you can see me about that. And there's also a sign-up sheet out there. And you don't have to like to do all of those things. You could just do one of those things. If you just want to write cards or just want to bake casseroles, if you never want to make a casserole, any of that's fine. So feel free to ask me more questions if you have any about that. So this week, we are in week 5 of a 7-week study series of Mark Nepo's book, More Together Than Alone. And in the last 4 weeks, Reverend Arlene has led us through a journey from I to we. She did that by talking about hospitality, harmony. Last week she talked about humility, and it reminded me that I've always loved the saying, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. This week's word is humanity. And this week's theme in the book is, how do we meet adversity? How do we meet adversity? And when I think about some of the things that have happened in our nation just over the last couple of weeks, I feel like this is really timely. How do we meet adversity? You know, in the first week we were given a mantra to work with through the 7 weeks. Anybody remember the mantra? It was similar to the song that Kat just so beautifully sang for us. These are phrases that Reverend Arlene gave us to work with that are part of what's known as metta meditation in the Buddhist tradition, or also known as loving kindness meditation. And the phrases can vary a bit, like from the song to the ones I'm going to give you now, but generally they follow a certain theme. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be peaceful. May you be free. Let's say those together. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be peaceful. May you be free. And often they're taught in this meditation practice that we start by saying it with an I. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be peaceful. May I be free. And as we begin to really sink into that feeling and be able to really viscerally experience the truth of that, the possibility of that, then we turn to those that we love, the ones closest to us. And in our meditation, we offer this to them. May you be well. May you be free from suffering. And as we feel a little stronger in this type of meditation, then we can expand the circle to the people maybe that we don't feel particularly one way or another about, people we see on the street, or maybe coworkers that we don't have much of a relationship with, or maybe they irritate us just a little bit. And we start with them, and we think, may you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be peaceful. You can offer this wherever you are. Sometimes you just see someone and you think, they need this. May you be well. May you be peaceful. And eventually the hope of this meditation practice is, as we get deeper into it, as it becomes more a part of us, that we can start to say this for those people that are hardest for us to love. So I invite you to imagine for a moment someone that it is nearly impossible for you to imagine loving. Yeah, it's hard to go there. It is. But imagine that person, and then try to ground yourself into this practice. And imagine being able to say with a clean heart, with an open mind, may you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be peaceful. May you be free. Simple phrases, but a deep practice. And so as we move into this week's theme, how do we deal with adversity? I felt like going back to that practice was a good place to start. And I was also remembering Reverend Lee's talk on harmony. Do you remember that? Some of you a few weeks ago were here for that one. And I found her message that week so beautiful and so convicting for me. And I found myself feeling a little resistant. She asked the question, how do we live in harmony in a world that's out of tune? And I walked away thinking, I don't know. Sometimes things are just so discordant that I don't think I can find harmony with what's going on in the world right now. And that brought to mind for me some orchestral pieces that I'm familiar with that have that really dissonant sound. Those moments of just real discord that can sound something like this. Vibration of that, and you think, oh, you want something good to happen now. Well, what does a composer do with that? You don't just sort of go from that to a sweet little melody, a sweet little harmony. You have to find a way to move around it, to create a sense of resolution. So I was thinking about how in our own lives, sometimes around us, the world feels so extremely discordant. And if we just keep along with our little do-do-do-do-do's, we're not really going to be in harmony with that world. To create harmony in the midst of extreme discord means that we have to rearrange things in ourselves. We have to do things differently. We have to change and adjust to the new realities around us. But how do we adjust to discord without becoming discordant ourselves? How do we create resolution in the midst of dissonance? So that's the question that I think Nepo is addressing in this 5th chapter of the book, How We Meet Adversity. And he gives some extremely moving examples from some of history's harshest moments. He writes, for example, about the conspiracy and murder that tried to take down the powerful and very wealthy Medici family in 15th century Italy. Lorenzo Medici watched as his brother was murdered right in front of him, and he was stabbed, and he realized that all these people around him that he thought were friends had turned on their family and were trying to bring them down. And his first instinct was revenge, and he did. He gathered some of the conspirators and he had them publicly hung. But he very quickly realized that if his life became consumed with revenge and distrust, that he would become the brutality that he had witnessed. And so instead, he decided to devote his life and his very large wealth to beauty and education. He formed the Medici Circle in Florence, and it became the first art school in Europe. He supported writers and philosophers and gave a platform to artists and thinkers like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, like Botticelli and Raphael. In the face of harsh realities, we have a choice of how we respond and who we will become. Will we replay brutality, or will we restore beauty? Will we seek resolution? Will we reclaim our humanity? Nepo writes in the book, one of the most compelling functions of community is to let the fullness of life, harshness and all, shape our sensibilities while protecting each other from the difficult aggressions that surround us. At its best, community serves as the trellis on which the delicate flowers of humanity can grow and blossom. Community serves as the trellis on which the delicate flowers of humanity can grow and blossom. I have a sense that that's what we're about here. That when we come together, we are attempting to create that trellis for each other. That place where our own humanity and the humanity of the people that we see, and then how we reach out into the community, that we're creating an infrastructure for humanity to grow, to blossom, to be beautiful. So Nepo goes on in this book to look at some of the most difficult times in modern history. He reminds us of our Civil War and the more than 620,000 lives that were lost and almost another 500,000 that were wounded. He looks at apartheid in South Africa and the Holocaust and the AIDS crisis, and in each case, he looks at how we respond. In every human, there are these impulses, these instincts in difficulty to fight or to flee or to freeze. And it reminds us that sometimes freezing can look like going compliant or numbing out. And I think that's what's going on a lot of times in addiction. When you're in a difficult situation and for whatever reason you don't want to or you can't fight or flee, and so you go numb. You find a way to go numb. We all will do each of these at different times in our life, depending on the situation. But Nepo reminds us that there are other ways to respond as well, beyond these instinctual ones. Clara Barton's work to relieve suffering in the field hospitals of that brutal Civil War was the beginning of the Red Cross. Nelson Mandela, after spending 27 years in prison during apartheid, got out and became president of South Africa. And in that role, he did not seek revenge, but he created instead the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where public confessions were made by some of the people who committed some of the worst atrocities of apartheid. And those confessions were broadcast across the whole country, and people were able to see and hear the truth of their stories being told. And in that seeing and hearing, there was healing. And so the whole country became an experiment in restorative justice at the communal level. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of restorative justice, it's the idea that rather than treat people who have wronged the community punitively, we find ways to restore them to the community and restore them to their own true selves, while still holding them accountable. I found the examples in this book both hard and hopeful. Hard because they remind us how tenuous human community really is, how quickly it can break. And hopeful because they teach us how resilient the human spirit is, how deeply we long to come back into right relationship, how much we're willing to risk to seek that community again. You may have noticed that we have an election this week. I find it heartbreaking that only days before we have this chance to exercise our right to make change in the nation through the power of our votes, some people have felt the need to resort to violence, to lash out with pipe bombs and semi-automatic weapons and pistols. This tells me that they don't believe their voice is strong enough to be heard, perhaps, or that their trust is so broken that they cannot imagine a way to make themselves safe, or they feel so hurt or afraid or resentful or lost that they need to thrash out in anger. What is going wrong in those cases? There's an example in Sierra Leone of communities that were experiencing circles of restorative justice after their brutal civil war. And they would have these small village circles where they were able to speak to each other their stories of how they were wounded in the war, how they were hurt. And they were able to hear from some of the people who had wounded and hurt them a request for forgiveness. And as they would get deeper into these circles, they would sit in silence. And then they would ask each other, what went wrong? What went wrong? And so when I see things like this happening in our own communities, I think, what went wrong? How can we help each other heal? Now, salvation is not a word you hear very often in unity churches, but it's one that's been on my mind this week. Anyone who knows me knows that I care deeply about the election, but I also know that elections are not what bring salvation to our country. No matter what the outcome is, no matter how you feel about who's elected. Because our salvation as a community of people who share this land together needs to come from somewhere much deeper. It needs to come from an understanding of who we really are as human beings, as individuals, and of how we are called to be more together than alone. When we talk of oneness every week, we say that beautiful thing about there's only one power and one presence. And of course, we're thinking about the one power and presence of our God and how we are at one with that power and presence. And by extension, we are then naturally at one with every other person on the planet and with, in fact, the planet itself. And apart from that understanding, really knowing that we are each and every single one of us sparks of the divine light, any other efforts will fall short. Can you believe that the man who went into a synagogue and killed worshipers is a spark of divine light? What went wrong? We're each Adam, that first person. And Adam, that name, comes from the Hebrew word Adamah, which means earth. So in Genesis, the first person was molded from the soil, and then the breath of life was blown into that creature. And I think it's interesting that that phrase, the breath of life, which is in Hebrew, is nishma chayim. Nishma chayim. It's a plural word, and it's both masculine and feminine. It's a non-binary breath of life. Or maybe more to the point, it is a diverse and communal breath of life that is breathed into each of us. This is who we all are. We are equally made of Mother Earth and the breath of all life, of Adamah and Nishma Chayim. This is our true nature, soil and spirit, human and divine. Jesus, of course, taught us this in his words and in his deeds, in his teachings and in his healings. He called himself Son of Man, which was a Hebrew idiom which simply meant human. He said, I'm a human one. And other people called him the Son of God. And he said to them, yes, you're right. Because that's what it means to be the human one. I am, and so are you. This is what our humanity is. Our vast, diverse humanity, soil and spirit. Do any of you know the work of Humans of New York? Any of you familiar with that? Maybe you've seen it online, on social media. So it started as a photography project of Brandon Stanton, who's a New Yorker and a photographer, and he wanted to catalog 10,000 pictures of people in New York in all of their beauty and diversity. Well, very shortly after he started making these photographs, he decided to put little captions under them. They're just about one paragraph. They're sort of succinct life stories, kind of life as haiku. And this became so popular that he now has more than 20 million followers on social media, and he's written a couple of best-selling books with these pictures and stories, and he travels all over the world now, not just in New York, doing these portraits. Well, recently he's been in Africa, and he's been going from country to country, and a few weeks ago he was in Rwanda. And the Rwandan stories are remarkable. And it's so remarkable that he decided to break this mold that he's had since 2010 when he started this project. And instead of just doing one story and one paragraph, or one photograph and one paragraph of each person is given 4 to 8 photographs and several paragraphs to tell these stories, because these stories needed space. They're stories of people who survived the Rwandan genocide in 1994. And if you don't know about the Rwandan genocide, let me give you just a little bit of background. It happened in 100 days between April and July of 1994. And in those 100 days, almost 1 million people died. It was mostly neighbors, slaughtering neighbors. So how did this happen? Well, Rwanda is made up of 2 main tribes. There's a smaller third tribe. The 2 main tribes are the Hutus and the Tutsis. And they've lived together there for millennia. But during the Belgian colonization, the Belgians decided that they preferred the Tutsis because they had a little more of the European standard of beauty. They were slightly lighter skinned, they had slightly thinner noses. And so they gave political and economic advantage to the Tutsis. Well, that obviously created a wedge and resentment between the 2 tribes. And over time, that wedge just grew and grew and grew, and the resentments deepened. But then in a sort of strange political twist, when the Belgians left, during the 1950s and 60s, when African nations were getting their independence from European colonizers, the Belgians left, and they left the Hutus in charge instead of the Tutsis who'd been in charge. So then that created a new resentment, and a civil war erupted. And then they went through these decades of peace and development, but these skirmishes would still come up. The resentment was never really healed. And so in 1994, the UN brokered a peace contract between the 2 sides, between the ruling Hutus and the rebel Tutsis at that time. But right as that was brokered, a plane was shot down with the president. And within a day, the killing began. Now, a lot of people knew that there was some concern and hatred festering around this possible peace agreement. But very few people realized how quickly it could be inflamed, how it could just overnight go from language to action. But it did. And this message that began the killing was spread mostly by hate radio. DJs would get on the radio and they would refer to the Tutsis as cockroaches that needed to be exterminated. Within 24 hours of the genocide beginning, the people began to realize that this was not just another skirmish. European nations and America asked that all of their folks be evacuated, and almost every white person left the country. The UN pulled out their thousands of soldiers and left only a couple of hundred, so there was no one left to sort of broker and defend in this disagreement. There was one American who stayed, only one, an Adventist relief worker named Carl Wilkins. And he plays a role in this story, but it's not his story I want to share with you. I want to share the story of a man named Damas Gasimba. Damas was part of an orphanage. He ran an orphanage, and he was the 3rd generation of his family to run this orphanage. It was in Kigali, which is Rwanda's capital, and when the killing began, people began running to the orphanage because they knew Damas and his family. Well, it's very dangerous, of course, to harbor anyone during this time, because you became a target for the killing. But he couldn't turn anybody away, and so he started hiding people all over, in the bushes, in the closets, in the bathrooms, even in his ceiling. And around 400 people ended up hiding out in this little orphanage. But they very soon ran out of food and water. It was too dangerous to go out and try to get more food and water, so they began dying of starvation and dysentery. Well, Carl Wilkins, this relief worker, he knew Demas and he knew of the orphanage. And so he started bribing people into selling him food and water, and then he would sneak it into the orphanage at night. Now the story is complicated, but eventually what happened is that those two men were able to get folks out of the orphanage and to the one remaining safe space in the country where the few UN soldiers still were. And every one of those orphans survived. I think we have a picture of Demas and some of his orphans. And these aren't, of course, the orphans at that time, because this was 25 years ago, but he's still running the orphanage and still working with kids. So, of course, the first important part of Demas's story is that he didn't turn people away. He gave up his own safety and food and water that others might survive. He saw their humanity. But the next part of the story, I think, is equally important. So what happened after the genocide is that an international tribunal was set up to try people for war crimes. But because this was a genocide that had happened not just with the military and with the militia, although they had been killing as well, but neighbors coming out of their houses and killing neighbors with machetes, there were 130,000 people that needed to be tried. And they were sitting in prison, and some of them were dying while they were awaiting trial. And the International Tribunal recognized pretty quickly that they weren't going to be able to have time to try all of these people. And so they decided to try something different. And they went back to the villages, and they decided to resurrect a traditional village court called gachachas. And so they set up 12,000 of these grassroots courts across the country. Demas was chosen in his community to be the judge of his local gachacha. What happened in these courts was not perfect. They had 100,000 people to try. They weren't in the practice of trying difficult things like this. They had been in the practice of dealing with potholes and minor issues. And it was neighbors judging neighbors. So it was by no means perfect, and it was somewhat controversial. But what was accomplished is astounding. People were able to confess what they had done and to ask forgiveness. People were given the opportunity to offer forgiveness. I sometimes wonder what our nation would be like today if after slavery and the Civil War we had had such village communities where we really sat down with each other, admitted where we had gone wrong, were able to confess to each other, were given a chance to be forgiven. Well, Carl Wilkins, who now lives in the United States, went back this year to visit Demas. And he came back from that visit, and he said, his spirit of forgiveness astounded us all. Here are some of the quotes that Carl remembered hearing from Demas this year. If you don't forgive, you will have as heavy a burden as the one needing forgiveness. Don't pick and choose when forgiving. Forgive them all. And finally, it is such a relief to make someone human again. They were human at one point, and they lost it. This from a man who had risked his life to save hundreds of people, mostly children, from this slaughter, who then became a leader in restoring those very killers to their own humanity. It is such a relief to make someone human again. They were human at one point, and they lost it. To be fully human is to know who we are. A creature made of both soil and spirit, Adamah and Nishma Chayim, a creature close to the earth and filled with the heavens. The question this week is, how do we meet adversity? And when I look at our own country, I want to ask that question, how are we meeting diversity? And when I look at just our community, I want to ask, how are we meeting adversity? What is our call right now? How do we meet adversity in our personal lives? Well, we start with our own hearts. We can't know exactly what we would do if we were faced with as dramatic a trauma as some of these stories from this week. But we can prepare our hearts to become the kind of people that we hope we would be. We can work to heal the wounds in our own past, to cleanse our hearts of hatred and revenge. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be peaceful. We can practice how to be loving and forgiving and kind with those who are closest to us. We can build up our muscles by a daily practice of the people who are around us in our lives and who gain our trust, offering them this blessing. May you be well. You may have gotten under my skin this week, but may you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. And we can devote ourselves to paying attention to anybody who feels other to us. Those from whom we feel separate. Those whose differences make it nearly impossible for us to really see them as just as much a spark of the divine Creator as those we love the most. They were human once, and they lost it. I'm not saying that we need to spend time hanging out with people who've traumatized us. No. I am saying that if we can't see them as fully human, then there is some part of ourselves that we are not seeing as fully human. Eddie Hillesum, like Anne Frank, was a Jewish German woman who wrote a diary during the Holocaust that was published after her death. It's called An Interrupted Life. And in it she writes, ultimately we have just one moral duty: to reclaim large areas of peace in ourselves, more and more peace, and to reflect it towards others. And the more peace there is in us, the more peace there will be in our troubled world. Hillesum, like Tomas Kasimba, like Nelson Mandela, like Clara Barton, was not speaking of an easy peace. These are each people who had seen the absolute worst that humans can perpetrate on each other. And yet each of them continued to believe that peace is possible, that forgiveness is possible, that restoration is possible, that community is possible, that resolution to the dissonance is possible. And not just to believe it, but to act as if it were true. How do we meet adversity? Jesus said to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Does this mean we let them get away with abuse? No. That is not love. Because when we are abusing another human being, we are not living in our Christ mind. We are not living as our true self, the self made in the image and the likeness of a loving Creator. So it's not loving to allow somebody to stay stuck in a place of hatred and hurt. So we call out wrongdoing, not to shame the wrongdoer, but because love demands that we remind them who they came here to be. How do we meet adversity? May you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be happy. May you be loved. We need it with love. And love creates a space big enough to invite something new to happen. Last Sunday, I went to the vigil downtown in Asheville for the Tree of Life Synagogue. And we sang together, Jew and Christian and Buddhist and pagan, black and white, Latinx and indigenous peoples. We stood there and we sang together. So I'd like to end today with one of the songs that we sang as we move into a time of meditation. So I'll invite our band to come back forward to help us out. And the words are very simple, and some of you may know this. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. So let's listen to this and sing along if you know it. Love, prepare to be a
sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Sing out.
Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Thank you. Let's be seated. Let's take that sense of ourselves, our bodies, these earth creatures that we are, into a meditation, imagining the possibility of creating within ourselves a sanctuary for anyone who needs it, including ourselves. I invite you to take a deep breath in, that breath of lives, that communal, diverse breath, made up of the air that has been breathed out by millions. And we breathe it in, and we breathe it out. And as you settle down into your seat and into this breath, I invite you to envision an inner sanctuary in your heart, in your core, open, light. And I invite you to imagine the strength of that sanctuary that you're creating. Not knowing who might need to find it with you. Not knowing what may be called forth from you. But knowing that if we practice now, if we practice today, creating that sanctuary, creating that loving heart, that clean heart, freed from revenge, freed from suffering, that then we are available to meet adversity. And I invite you now to invite anyone into that place of sanctuary that you're creating in your soul. Maybe say their names into our silence together. Who do you want to invite into that sanctuary? And say your own name. Laura. And know that that space is created with the breath of life, the divine spark, your true self, your full human nature. So we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And we commit to preparing ourselves to be a sanctuary.
Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary. Pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving, be a living sanctuary for you. Love, prepare me.
Sing it out.
To be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
May it be so.
Thank you, Reverend Laura. Thank you for that call to be more aware of who we are as heaven and earth, as human and spirit, and to love that Christ mind and Christ heart in such a holy, holy way. Thank you for that. Now is the time in our service where we prepare for our tithes and offering. I'd like to invite our ushers to come forward. And as we prepare, let's just open our hearts and just know that who we are, the light that we bring, the love that we bring, the gifts that we offer this day, serve this ministry to spread the light, to spread the word of goodness and all that is holy out into the world through our live stream. Thank you for joining us today. Through all the work that we do. Let us repeat this blessing together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God. So it is.
Strong enough to bear the burden that sometimes comes with living this thing called life. Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and wonder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. Sometimes I wonder and wonder, and to realize I'm not alone, and it's not that I was doing my own thing. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows love. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows love.
Sacred service is another aspect of community that is so integral, so important. It's how we come together and we share our gifts and we share our geniuses and we connect on a level that allows us to have wonderful Sunday soulful experiences and to carry our work out into the world. So if you are interested in being in service, please see Cynthia following today's service. Now let us bless these gifts. Knowing that there is only one power, one presence, infinite and eternal, divine source, flowing in every aspect of creation, regenerating, rejuvenating, revealing itself as love, as prosperity, as wholeness, as healing. These gifts are representative of this divine life that is God showing up in our lives. And these gifts go out and support this community, unity of the Blue Ridge, and then goes out and blesses and touches and uplifts and heals all those around the world. And then that energy comes back to us multiplied abundantly, and each of us are touched and healed and blessed and prospered. So we give thanks. We give thanks for this ministry, for these gifts, for this life, and so it is. Amen. Let us close with a peace song.